Friday evening. She leaned across the table, eyes locked on yours, repeating your favorite story as if it were her own. You laughed, stunned by how perfectly she matched your rhythm. For the first time in years, you felt the heavy silence inside you lift. Finally. Someone who gets me, you thought. In that moment, you didn't question how she knew the exact words, the exact timing, the exact tone. You just surrendered to the relief. But relief is not love. Relief is a contract. And every contract has a cost. When perfection arrives too quickly, your nervous system mistakes it for destiny. She listens with unnatural precision. She mirrors your humor, your scars, even your doubts, as if she's been studying you in secret. Compliments slide in, perfectly calibrated to your past wounds. You're not like other men. No one's ever understood me like you. These words soothe your hunger to be seen. But they are also currency deposits into a bank she will withdraw from later. The body speaks before the mind admits the truth. You lose sleep, but call it passion. You lose focus, but tell yourself it's excitement. Your performance drops, but you dismiss it as distraction. Each symptom is a receipt, proof that the invoice has already begun to arrive. And still, you justify it. Because the illusion of being chosen feels safer than the reality of being alone. Pause. Feel. That's think back to the first 2 or 3 weeks. How many small tests did you overlook? The way she praised you for canceling your own plans. The way she slipped in requests, disguised as needs. The way she mirrored your history so precisely that you stopped asking if it was even hers. These weren't accidents. They were rehearsals. She wasn't bonding with you, she was learning the codes that unlock your obedience. Your inner voice whispered, "This is chemistry. Don't ruin it by doubting." But chemistry that blinds you isn't attraction, it's conditioning. And conditioning always demands payment. You traded choice for crisis management. You thought you were building intimacy, but you were only surrendering ground. Take out your notes. Write down 3 moments where you stopped leading and started reacting. 3 moments where her validation steered your decision. 3 moments where you believed you were seen, when in fact, you were being studied. That list is your receipt. Look at it without excuses. The cost was never hidden, you just didn't want to name it. When perfection arrives quickly, the invoice comes later, and the invoice is always paid in full. He met her on a Tuesday, and by Friday, it already felt like fate. She seemed to anticipate his words before he spoke them, laughed at his exact timing, carried his stories as if they had been hers all along. The speed was intoxicating. It erased the silence he had carried for years, the fear of never being chosen. Finally, I can breathe, he thought. But what he called destiny was a transaction. Every breath he took in relief was collateral against a debt he hadn't yet seen. When perfection appears instantly, it doesn't eliminate uncertainty. It buries it. The compliments felt like medicine, but were actually calibration. Each phrase mapped onto an old wound, and each echo of his personality disguised itself as chemistry. The flattery was not random, it was targeted, precise, designed to soothe the ache of invisibility. And he welcomed it, because the comfort of being seen outweighed the discipline of asking if it was real. Look closer. In the first 2 or 3 weeks, she staged rehearsals. A subtle request, framed as loyalty. A small inconvenience, dressed as sacrifice. A test, to see if he would trade his priorities for hers. Every time, he complied, believing he was protecting love, when in reality, he was managing crises she quietly created. He thought he was passing her tests. The truth is, his willingness to be tested was the proof she needed that his boundaries were negotiable. The body never lies. Sleep became fragile. Focus fractured at work. Humor dulled. He told himself it was the rush of romance, but in truth, it was depletion. Every yes drained a reservoir he didn't know was finite. The anxiety that kept him awake at night was not longing, it was the hidden cost. Yet he ignored it, because the illusion of peace was more seductive than the discomfort of suspicion. Pause. Let that register. Think of your own life. The moments when you convinced yourself exhaustion was devotion. The moments when you justified distraction as excitement. The times you dismissed your body's alarms because you didn't want to disrupt the dream. Those weren't accidents. They were receipts. And each receipt belonged to an invoice that was already accruing. Interest, she offered gifts that became passwords to your emotions. A gesture that seemed generous but was really a claim on your loyalty. A phrase that mirrored your past so closely that you stopped questioning whether it was hers. You weren't gaining intimacy, you were losing independence. And because it felt like relief, you misnamed it chemistry. But chemistry that costs you clarity is not connection. It is conditioning. Write it down. 3 moments where you surrendered choice for crisis management. 3 times where her validation overruled your instinct. 3 points where you believed you were building closeness, but were actually eroding yourself. Call them what they are. Evidence. Evidence that the invoice had already arrived. Long before you realized you were paying. When perfection arrives quickly, the invoice comes later. And when it comes, it always costs more than you imagined. Saturday night. She sat across from you, nodding at every word, finishing your sentences as if she had memorized them in advance. She loved your favorite band, your favorite movie, even the exact flavor of whiskey you kept for rare occasions. Finally, someone who sees me, you thought. The reflection felt flawless. But flawless reflections are never warm. A perfect mirror is still cold glass. What you felt wasn't intimacy. It was hunger, hers for control, yours for recognition. She fed your need to be seen, and in feeding it, she created dependence. Every laugh, every echo of your preferences, every uncanny match made you lower your guard. You called it compatibility. In reality, it was choreography. She didn't need to win you with conflict or conquest. All she had to do was show you your own reflection until you mistook it for connection. Notice how the rhythm shifted when you relaxed. At first, she matched your every step. But the moment you leaned back, believing the bond was secure, she altered the pace. A delay in her response. A slight withdrawal of attention. The silence hit harder than it should have, because it wasn't just absence, it was disruption. And you found yourself chasing the rhythm you thought was real. That chase became her leash. Inside your head, the excuses whispered, "She's just busy. I should give her space. I don't want to look insecure." But the truth was simpler. If reflection vanishes the moment you pause, it was never genuine. Real compatibility doesn't evaporate when tested. Imitation does. The test is simple. Slow down. Cut your pace by 30%. See what remains. If interest shrinks, if attention evaporates, if the mirror cracks, then you weren't seen. You were copied. True resonance withstands patience. Imitation requires urgency. That's why slowing down reveals everything. Think about the conversations that lasted for hours only after she had pulled away for days. Think about how affection intensified right after you questioned her distance. That isn't love responding. That's strategy adapting. The mirror shows you what you crave only long enough to keep you dependent on the reflection. You need to ask the questions that mimicry cannot answer. Questions about conflict, about silence, about money, about boredom. Questions that reveal coherence over time. A woman who is real will stand in her own rhythm even when it collides with yours. A woman who mirrors will dodge, twist, and bend back toward your answers. And when that happens, you will see it clearly: the glass was never alive. Keep a diary of what relaxes in you around her. Do you lower vigilance? Do you surrender your boundaries? Do Do you give away leadership in exchange for being understood? Track these details with precision. They will expose how often you confuse relief with safety. Relief that comes from imitation is temporary. Safety that comes from authenticity is permanent. And here is the danger. The hunger for reflection never disappears. Every man carries it. The trap is believing that a mirror can feed it forever. Because when the mirror tilts away, you don't just lose her, you lose yourself. And that is the hunger she counts on. It was 1:47 a.m. The glow of your phone lit the ceiling as you stared at it, waiting for her reply. Minutes stretched into hours. Just when you were ready to give up, the screen lit up with her name. A rush hit, your chest relief, excitement, even a sense of victory. She still cares. I was wrong to doubt. But what you mistook for proof of love was nothing more than the hit of dopamine that comes from surviving silence. This wasn't intimacy. It was the casino effect. Casinos don't keep people addicted with certainty. They keep them trapped with unpredictability, wins that arrive just enough to fuel hope, losses that deepen the hunger. She played by the same rulebook. Withdraw affection, then deliver it suddenly, and watch your nervous system confuse anxiety with passion. It wasn't her presence that addicted you, it was the rhythm of absence and return. Pain first, relief later. The body tells the story before the mind can. The tightness in your stomach while staring at the phone. The shallow breaths as you rehearsed what you'd say when she finally answered. The way your focus collapsed at work, your thoughts circling endlessly around her silence. That surge of calm when her message arrived wasn't love, it was chemistry. The same rush a gambler feels when the reels finally line up. Not because he won anything real, but because he survived the wait. Inside your head, the dialogue played on repeat. She's tired. That's all. She needs space. I should be patient. If I love her harder, she'll be consistent. These weren't truths. They were rationalizations that kept you chained to the machine. She didn't need to give you stability. She only needed to keep you uncertain enough that your craving would do the rest. The deadliest mistake men make here is giving more when they receive less. When her attention shrinks, they pour in effort. When her affection fades, they double their loyalty. They believe generosity can restore what was lost, not realizing the scarcity is intentional. The machine doesn't reward devotion. It rewards dependency. And each time you gave more, you weren't moving closer, you were sinking deeper. Breaking this cycle requires discipline of state. Do not make promises while high on relief. Do not compromise your standards while your body is trembling with dopamine. Pause. Breathe. Use the 4-7-8 cycle. Inhale for 4. Hold for 7. Exhale for 8. Repeat 3 times. Drink water. Walk 5 minutes. Let your body come down before your mind decides. Only then will you see the truth. You weren't chasing her, you were chasing the chemistry of relief. Examine the pattern in writing. Did she offer intimacy only after pulling away? Did she open her heart only when you threatened to leave? Did her warmth come in bursts, always after coldness? These aren't quirks, they're tactics. By naming the strategy, you rob it of mystery. And once mystery dissolves, the power it had over you weakens. Pause here. If your body feels restless, if you want to dismiss these words, write down the moments you begged for her attention, the nights you couldn't sleep, the days you performed less at work because you were spinning in her cycle. That list is your evidence. Evidence stronger than memory, because memory bends under longing. Evidence holds steady. Casinos pay in lights, not in safety. Her affection wasn't security, was sparkle, a flash timed to keep you playing longer. And once you see the machine for what it is, the only winning move is to stop pulling the lever. It began subtly. A shift in definitions, mid-conversation. A denial of words she had spoken only days before. A tone that left you wondering if you were the problem. At first, you doubted yourself. Maybe I misheard. Maybe I'm being too sensitive, but you hadn't. What you felt was not miscommunication. It was design. Gaslight is not chaos, is architecture. The structure is precise. Destabilize perception, then offer yourself as the compass. She questioned your memory, not to clarify, but to erode your trust in it. She reframed agreements until you felt guilty for expecting consistency. She cloaked manipulation in the language of protection. I'm only saying this because I care, and slowly, you surrendered authority over your own reality. You began to rely on her definitions more than your own eyes. That surrender was her foundation. The aftermath of these exchanges was always the same. You didn't walk away convinced. You walked away exhausted. You didn't gain clarity, you gained fog. And that fog was the point. Confusion was the tool, not the accident. Because a man who doubts himself is easier to steer than a man who trusts his ground. That was her leverage, not affection, not charm, but distortion. The defense is clarity. Anchor your terms before entering the storm. Say them out loud. Write them down. When she shifts the ground, name the shift. That's not what I said. That's not the agreement we made. Do not argue in circles. Do not beg her to acknowledge the truth. Fog cannot be debated. If she refuses to return to shared clarity, end the exchange. Walking away is not weakness, it is sovereignty. Boundaries are not punishments. They are filters. They separate the woman who values you from the one who exploits you. A partner who cares will thank you for your limits, because limits create safety. A manipulator will fight them, because limits remove her tools. That reaction is the test. Gratitude means love. Resistance means control. Write your own contract of reliability. 4 simple lines. Response, cancellation, money, rhythm. Not rules for her, but standards for you. When you live by them, you protect your reality, no matter who tries to distort it. You stop measuring yourself by how persuasive you are, and start measuring yourself by how consistent you remain. Gaslight requires confusion to survive. Where there is steadiness, it suffocates, and if you ever doubt again, trust your body. The tightening chest. The restless sleep. The spinning thoughts after a conversation that should have been simple. Those were not signs of love. They were alarms. And alarms are not there to be ignored. They are there to save you. He thought about leaving dozens of times, but every attempt was strangled by guilt. The thought itself felt like betrayal. If I just explain better, she'll understand. If I stay loyal, she'll soften. That was the lither invisible collar of the trauma bond. What kept him wasn't love. It was the cycle of harm and relief, punishment and reward, chaos and calm. His nervous system had been rewired to believe that surviving her storms was intimacy. This is how trauma bonds work. A wound is opened, then soothed. Fear is provoked, then calmed. Every time the cycle completes, the nervous system confuses pain with connection. It is why prisoners grow loyal to their captors. Why children cling to parents who hurt them. And why men stay with women who dismantle them. The bond is not emotionally, is chemical. And once formed, it feels stronger than logic, stronger than willpower. The fawn response seals the cage. Instead of fighting, you begin to appease. You apologize for things you never did. You tiptoe around her moods. You give up boundaries in the hope that your sacrifice will keep the peace. What you call compromise is erasure. You stop being the man you were, shrinking piece by piece, until the mirror reflects someone unrecognizably obedient, silent, hollowed out. Your body carried the evidence. The shame after every argument where you caved. The guilt that followed the thought of leaving. The compulsion to stay just one more day, one more week, one more month, because maybe the calm would last this time. But calm was never the reward. Calm was the reset, just enough to prepare you for the next storm. She didn't need to lock the door, you locked it yourself. Convinced that leaving made you the villain. Breaking this cycle feels like breaking an oath. That is why most men fail. They confuse quitting with abandoning. But you never signed that oath. It was written into you through repetition, not agreement. And the only way to end it is through clarity. 14 days of distance. No contact. No explanations. No negotiations. Replace her chaos with structure. A morning routine that grounds you. A conversation with a trusted friend who doesn't live in your fog. A journal that records the costs you pay daily. Withdrawal will ache like an open wound. But the ache is not love. Leaving it is chemistry unraveling. Remember this phrase: you are not leaving a woman. You are leaving a machine that learned your code. Once you see her patterns as programming, not passion, the guilt loses its grip. You realize you were never disloyal. You were reclaiming the self that had been dismantled. And that reclamation begins not with explanations, but with silence. You've walked through mirrors, casinos, fog, and chains. What's left now is not hardness, but clarity. The demolition left scars, but beneath the rubble lies a foundation untouched. The part of you that cannot be stolen. Healing does not mean you will never desire again. It means you will never confuse chaos for love again. The first signs of reconstruction are quiet. Sleep that feels deep. Focus that holds steady. Laughter that rises without permission. These are not luxuries. They are proof that your nervous system is no longer trapped in survival. Peace is the measure, not euphoria. Reciprocity is the measure, not promises. Clarity is the measure, not stories. Write your own weekly filter. Did I act from calm, or from craving? Did I choose connection that was mutual, or did I beg for attention? Did I keep my rhythm, or did I trade it for hers? These questions are not rules, they are guardrails. Guardrails that keep you from ever stepping into the same trap again. Remember the symbol of the lighthouse. It doesn't chase ships. It doesn't bend its light. It simply shines, steady, unshaken. Ships that respect the light find safety. Ships that ignore it crash. Either way, the lighthouse remains. That is the man you are becoming. Not cold. Not distant, but unwavering. If this spoke to you, I've left a toolkit in the description, resources and guides to help you break the cycle of anxiety and rebuild rhythm with steadiness. Use them as a craftsman uses tools, at the right time, on the right piece. And don't stop here. In the next episode, we uncover the emotional trap every smart man ignores, the hidden snare that even the most competent men step into after leaving toxic dynamics, and how to avoid repeating the same fate. If this gave language to what you've lived, give it a like, subscribe, and share it with a man who needs to recover his rhythm. Thousands of men are waking up, and you are not alone.